On today's show, we're going to be breaking down the college football conference realignment. So, it's been just almost a year now since a lot of this stuff broke with, some of these teams moving and the dominoes have started to fall. And frankly, I mean, I know I'll say this, I'm shocked we haven't seen more than what's already gone on. What are your thoughts on it, Chris?
No, I 100% agree. This is big to me. Just as a fan of college football now for almost 30 years. It's going to change the landscape for sure. To me, to just start this thing off, man, it kind of looks like they want to have just two major conferences, right? You got I kind of see it coming down to like, you got your 16 here, East Coast divided right down the center, and you got your West Coast 16. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what it looks like to me. You can disagree with that if you want, Christian, but I mean, that's kind of where I see it's going. I know there's a lot of money involved on both sides, but it doesn't matter what we say. It's probably going to happen. I'm not the biggest advocate of that, if you will. I kind of miss I won't say smaller conferences, but I do miss where, a lot of the schools, like the old school rivalries, I've told you about this before, and I probably said it on the podcast as well, is that, I come from the Big 12, right? And I miss the rivalries with Colorado, K-State, Missouri, hell, even Iowa State, those teams, Oklahoma going back in the day, and even Texas. So like, and that, I mean, you could go further back than that, than the Big 8. So I'm not mad that we joined the Big 10. Don't get me wrong. It's just one of those things now where it's like you see teams coming over, and I think you're probably going to touch on the upcoming teams, upcoming teams and where they're moving here shortly. But that's kind of my thoughts on that, man. I'm not a big fan of the big monster power conferences. Kind of reminds me of the NFL or the NBA, where you got your East and your West, or you got your AFC and your NFC or whatever. So, Christian, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this and where do you kind of think this is going?
Yeah, I think that's all great. I think it's exactly like you said. I think it's the rich are getting richer. It sort of seems like there's a lot of rumors coming out, man. There's a lot of rumors coming out about the ACC and different pieces, and everybody getting ready to go on the move, and there's a lot of reshuffling. It does seem to favor the Big Ten and the SEC, though. I do think that all these moves are kind of going to two major conferences, and man, I hate it. If I can just speak frankly, I don't like it, because there is a side of me that grew up, and it seems like a lot of the traditions of college football, a lot of those old school rivalries that we used to get to see, right? We grew up with and a lot of these are going to start to kind of come back, but you think about it, the Michigans and the Ohio States are going to now, could that be replaced with Ohio State and USC? Or God forbid, UCLA is doing some stuff, Michigan and UCLA, or Nebraska and some of these different teams. To me, I think this all sets up, and it all points towards, just the rich are getting richer, if I could say that. I think the other side of this, and the question that I ask myself is, could this have been avoided? So, for example, let's say that in the mid-2000s, before all the conference realignment kicked off last time with West Virginia, Nebraska, and some of these teams started shuffling all over the place, what if they would have expanded and they would have gone to a playoff format around that point? And then, kind of like how in basketball, they make it more of like the March Madness thing. Like, you have you cut down on the schedule, you go to more playoff games, and now all of a sudden the bowl games, you don't go from the bowl games being the highlight of everything to a 4-team playoff. And now I think, because we've had that for more than a decade almost, that kind of cheapens it a little bit, right? It's like, well, we had 4 teams. Like, we should have, I think, to me, we should have gone to at least like a 20-team playoff, something crazy like that right out of the gate, and it would have had much more of a meaning to it from that standpoint.
No, and I thought maybe you were going to disagree, because, like I said, we haven't really talked about this personally or anything off air, and I kind of thought maybe you disagree with me, because I've talked to other people about this, and they like, oh, I love the monster, 2 conference, 16 teams apiece on both sides, essentially, if you will, and I guess I'm not with that. So I 100% agree with you. I guess I think anybody our age or older probably really loves the old school, conferences. And I remember when, like, this is way back in the day when I was a kid, basically when we went from the Big 8 to the Big 12, for example, that pissed people off. You know what I mean? Like we, went from 8 to 12, right? And that was like a big deal for some of the people that, and I'm not like discriminating here, but the people that were older than me, right? And it was like, oh my God, we don't need more teams, and now look at it, right? Jump to the Big 10. Big 10 is, potentially getting USC and UCLA in there. I know there was a big deal about Oregon, Washington. That comes down to basketball, volleyball, and all that, right? The extra revenue, the money. It's just crazy to me. I guess I don't personally care for it. And I'm with you. I wish I said when they came out, you guys remember probably the BCS system, which I never was a fan of. I thought when they, talked about playoff, and I thought, hey, God, they're at least going to make it 8, right? Or make it 16, and they make it freaking 4. And I still just don't care for the 4. We saw what happened last year. If Alabama should have been in, and that's a whole different debate for another day. But no, I'm with you, man. I'm not a big fan of the monster conferences. Like I said, I think it takes a lot away from just the rivalries between schools. You know what I mean? Like the ones that have been the tradition, that have been around forever. You can create new ones, and I get everything starts somewhere, but it's like, damn, man. Like, like you said, you made up a great point. Does that take away from Ohio State, Michigan? Does that take away from what's another one? Alabama, Georgia, right? Or Alabama, Auburn. That's the bigger one, right? It's been around forever. Does that take away when you guys add in, let's say Clemson joins ship? You know what I mean? From if that ever happens, or you throw in Texas and Oklahoma, holy shit, right? I just don't like where that's necessarily going. And like I said, people are going to disagree with that, and that's great. I'm glad, we all don't have the same opinion on everything, but like, I guess where it's going is it's not something I'm a huge fan of. Still going to love college football just as much as I always have. It's just kind of sucks on that standpoint, kind of where it looks like it's headed here. And like you said, it's the rich are getting richer.